here to be the love of God. Yes, I am here to love. Yes, I am here to serve. Yes, I am here to be the love of God, my God. And I know forevermore that I am loved. Yes, I know forevermore that I am loved. Yes, I am here to learn. Yes, I am here to live. Yes, I am here to be the love of God. Yes, I am here to learn. Yes, I am here to live. Yes, I am here to be the love of God, my God. And I know forevermore that I am loved. Yes, I know forevermore that I am loved. Yes, I am here to love. Yes, I am here to serve. Yes, I am here to be the love of God, my God, of God, my God, of God, my God.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We welcome you once again to our online virtual Unity community. After another challenging week, seems like they're inevitable these days in our nation. Let's all just take a second to just breathe into this now moment and affirm our oneness with one another and with all beings around the world, recognizing the divisions of race and nation and religion and culture, gender, sexual orientation, or political party are all illusions to ultimately be dissolved in and through our shared spiritual walk and our commitment to divine love. I'm Reverend Vicky Elder, here once again with Reverend Michelle Jelinich and our Essential Sunday Service team. Our music director, Denise Headland, with John Dundon on drums and special music with Devin Hubert on guitar. Our council co-chairs, Robin Falkenberg, are here doing platform, and Martha Price doing the live stream. We have John Talon on sound, and this presence of support and oneness that gets us through it all. We begin by affirming our Unity of Monterey Bay sacred mission as an inclusive spiritual community committed to co-creating an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just, and compassionate human presence on this planet. In celebrating our oneness, we honor the God of each of our understanding and affirm the innate good and divine essence within each and every individual. Will you please join me in our statement of faith? There is only one presence and one power in the universe, God the good, expressing as infinite God beyond us, intimate God beside us, inner God being us, divine love in action. And so it is. And now as we go a little deeper and set our intention to open our hearts and minds even more into this sacred time together, we breathe again into this present moment on this Labor Day weekend, and we pray. We enter into this beloved community for kindness and comfort. May rough-worn hands and aching backs be healed. We enter into this beloved community of hope for equality. May those who labor to survive live to know justice. We enter into this beloved community of love and vocation. May our bonds of solidarity be strengthened. We enter into this beloved community of courage and friendship. May we move hand in hand toward freedom for all. And now, emboldened by the strength of our community, we affirm together, standing in truth, standing in truth, I move from fear to faith.
I move from fear to faith.
And so it is.
So it is.
I want to refer you to our shout-outs for the announcements of our ongoing events and upcoming events, but I want to bring your attention to a new book study circle that will begin on Wednesday, September 16th, that will give us an opportunity to go even deeper into the book that we're using for our current Sunday series, See No Stranger. You can check the shout out for further information about that. And one other special thing that's coming up beginning Monday, September 14th, and continuing for 3 weeks, is a prayer respite. For all of us that are feeling, I love to use Molly's words, is going to be guided by Molly Steele, a little crispy in these days. She's going to be providing a 1-hour prayer respite each Monday night for 3 weeks. Both of those things, you can find out more information in our e-blast. And so now we're going to take a moment to bless the children that are close to us and all the children around the world, the children who are struggling to learn in new environments and through new processes. We see them being supported. We see our nation working to find policies that will get them back into schools where they belong. And so as we hold these thoughts and all of these children, we allow their light and love and joy and zeal to awaken that place in us as we join together in our heartfelt blessing. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you just the way you are. Well, in all of our different ways of doing things right now, I forgot that this was the first Sunday of the month, and so we're celebrating September birthdays. And so
somebody has a birthday in September. I don't
somebody
know.
does have a birthday in September. I do have a birthday in September. It's a big birthday in September. So, but I know there's a lot of you out there who also have birthdays in September, and so just open your hearts and receive.
So now we're going to take a moment to deepen our blissful interconnection with Spirit. So collectively taking a deep breath in and letting it out with an audible sigh. As we allow all distractions to gently fade away, and we invite the chime to call us into the sacred space within. We ring the chime 4 times to call in the 4 directions and to remind us of our interconnection with all of creation and with the sacred circle of life. As we feel it resonate through our very beings, we follow its call into this now present moment within. Continuing to focus on our breath, with each inhale, we open our hearts and minds. We envision our breath reaching every cell of our being. And with each exhale, we see all barriers and obstacles dissolving into the divine flow. And again, as we inhale, we expand that spaciousness within us. We move beyond the limitations and boundaries of our bodies. And as we exhale, we ground ourselves deep within Mother Earth and into our oneness with the universe. Finally, we breathe our awareness into the highest expression of love, light, joy, and peace we can imagine. As we experience a transforming wave of gratitude, and with a fullness of heart, we say yes to it all. Embracing, claiming, and knowing the divine Christ Spirit expressing in, through, and as us. And with a final exhale, we say, thank you, God. So now, fully centered and transformed by the power of Spirit, we enter into our lesson and meditation time with today's daily word.
We read from today's daily word, shared with permission of Unity Publisher of Daily Word, that can also be found at dailyword.com. In the word is renewal. I invite you to allow my words to be your words. I rest in God and am renewed. My time of rest is a sacred gift. I turn within and remember how necessary rest and renewal are to my spirit, soul, and body. Now is my time to experience peace. My whole being responds with joy to the renewing presence of God within me. By surrendering to this life-giving presence, I carry a feeling of well-being into my day. I rest from labors and pause for physical, emotional, and spiritual renewal. Any mental tension that I may be holding recedes as I release all concerns and affirm divine order. I enjoy this day and welcome all that it has to offer me. By relaxing into this now moment, I am centered in my present awareness. I accept the infinite bounty of God in every moment of this restful day and am renewed. And from the scriptures, return, O my soul, to your rest, for the Lord has dealt bountifully with you. Psalm chapter 116, verse 7.
I am that I am has brought me to this now moment. Here I am. I am that I am has brought me to this now moment. Here I am to be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. To be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am.
In witness to the wisdom of the many paths to the sacred, We read from 3 sacred traditions on this morning's topic. Revolutionary love includes self-compassion. From Buddhism, trust that you have a good and compassionate nature. You are part of the universe. You are made of stars. When you look at your loved one, you see that he is also made of stars and carries eternity inside. Looking in this way, we naturally feel reverence. From Thich Nhat Hanh. From Sikhism, show kindness and mercy to all beings and realize that the Lord is pervading everywhere. From Guru Granth Sahib. And from Christianity, put away from you all bitterness and wrath and anger and wrangling and slander, together with all malice, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ has forgiven you. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 31 and 32.
I've been looking out in the morning rain, wake up in the middle of a dream. One more chance to begin again, do the right thing. I got no faith in the powers that be, wake up in the middle of a dream. Looks like change is up to me, do the right thing. Take heart, wake up in the middle of a dream. Take heart and do the right thing. Take heart, wake up in the middle of a dream. Take heart and do the right thing. Sins of the fathers dead and gone, wake up in the middle of the dream. Bless their souls and carry on, do the right thing. Call up the ones that you trust the most, wake up in the middle of a dream. Mother, daughter, Holy Ghost, do the right thing. Take heart, wake up in the middle of a dream. Take heart and do the right thing. Take heart, wake up in the middle of a dream. Take heart and do the right thing. There's a greeting underneath the winter snow, and a feeling that we're guided as we go. There's a silver moon a-rising, and nobody's keeping score. The differences don't matter anymore. Hearts of the hungry far above, wake up in the middle of a dream. Give them shelter, share their load, do the right thing. Beyond belief, beyond the blood, wake up in the middle of a dream. We gotta place our faith in the power of love, do the right thing. Take heart, wake up in the middle of a dream. Take heart and do the right thing. Take heart, wake up in the middle of a dream. Take heart and do the right thing. Take heart and do the right thing. Do the right thing.
So today, we're moving to part 2 in our series on revolutionary love, based on the book See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love by Valerie Kerr. The book is a memoir of Kaur's own personal journey as a Sikh woman born in the Central California Valley, experiencing and chronicling the persecution and hate crimes against Sikh, Hindus, Arabs, South Asian Americans, and all those deemed other initiated in our nation after 9/11 and continuing today some 2 decades later. More importantly, using her own powerful story, Cora embraces her Sikh faith to discern and share a way forward, which she calls the way of revolutionary love. To briefly review, Cora describes revolutionary love as an ethic, not an emotion. It involves the choice to enter into wonder and labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to heal and transform the world around us. She further explains that this revolutionary love is not a formal code or prescription, but an orientation to life that is personal and political and rooted in joy, a force for justice that can only be practiced in community, which has anchored the nonviolent movements of reformers throughout history. As I noted last week, Cora divides her book into 3 parts, all revealing a path to becoming agents for revolutionary love, as we seek to be love in a time of division and rage, and fix a broken world while not breaking, or perhaps even while trying to heal ourselves. Our first 2 lessons over the past 2 weeks spoke to part 1, See No Stranger, Loving Others. We explored the practical application of the Sikh teaching and awareness that a stranger is simply a part of ourselves we do not yet know. It's also embodied in the Buddhist practice of universal compassion and our own Christian tradition of following Jesus' commandment to love one another. Today and next week, we'll be addressing part 2, Tend the Wound, Loving Opponents, which explores how to heal ourselves so that we can learn to love our adversaries or the opposition and then begin to reimagine a new world. And in our final lesson, we'll conclude with part 3, Breathe and Push, Loving Ourselves. In essence, learning how to pace ourselves, develop resilience, and practice self-care for the long labor of love that transformation always requires. So we're going to begin with just a brief overview of part 1, See No Stranger. You recall that Cora describes 3 practices that can help us learn to love others and strangers, in essence, to come to see them as part of ourselves. The first is being willing to wonder about others, to keep our hearts and minds open, asking questions rather than making assumptions and judgments, and desiring to learn and understand. The second is being willing to grieve with others, and especially with strangers. In essence, allowing ourselves to feel empathy, experience and share pain, and offer compassion so that we can break down barriers and create meaningful connections. And the third practice was choosing to fight with and for others. In essence, to seek justice for all people, which is the only kind of justice there is. So having opened a way for us to consciously choose oneness with those who are part of us that we do not yet know, Cora shifts her focus to how we might learn to love those who appear to be our enemies or our opponents. Part 2, Tend the Wound, Loving Opponents, again offers 3 practices: rage, listen, and reimagine. Today we're going to focus solely on how to embrace and constructively channel our rage, as it is, I believe, the most challenging aspect of this journey. Cora tapped into my own deep programming when she admitted that, growing up as a good girl, she had learned to bypass rage or subdue it as soon as it arose. Not only because it was an inappropriate emotion for a girl or a woman to have, let alone express, but also because she had believed that rage was the opposite of love and compassion. Now, I'm pretty sure most, if not all, of the women here with us this morning, both virtually and right here in the pews, can relate to this. I was in my 40s before I began to acknowledge and express any anger, and it still doesn't come easily to me. Here's a little test. Think about when you read a Facebook post that makes you angry. Do you press the angry emoji or the sad emoji? I find myself many times pressing the sad emotion because I don't want to express the anger that I'm feeling. But the thing is, the opposite of love is not rage. It's indifference. As Cora explains, love engages all of our emotions. Joy is the gift of love, grief is the price of love, and anger is the force that protects that which we love. And we can't access the depth of loving ourselves or others without including that element of rage. In other words, to become agents of revolutionary love, we must embrace our shadow side as well as our light. In essence, love our whole selves, which means, as we discussed last week, learning to express our own grief and to grieve with others and strangers, sharing our vulnerability in order to create connections rather than divisions. And it's about learning to embrace our own anger and rage in order to transform it into constructive energy that delivers life instead of death. Cora begins the chapter on rage by sharing more of her personal family story, specifically about the role of women in traditional Sikh families and societies, where marriages were usually arranged and wives are subject to their husbands and their mother-in-laws, whom they often live with. And they're taught to bear any pain they have in silence. Now that's a good cauldron for suppressed rage, right? While she celebrates being the first girl in her own ancestral line whose parents told her she could become anything she wanted to be, Cora acknowledges that the cultural norms she grew up in and around nevertheless still ran deep within her. She shares a time when, as a teenager, she was molested by a cousin. They had big families and everybody became brother, sister, or cousins. In this incident, she was able to flee to safety, and she even worked up the courage to confront the boy who had hurt her the next day. But she told no one. And when she met with this boy and his tearful regret, she ended up consoling him, saying, "It's okay. After all, he hadn't actually raped her," she reasoned. But the trauma and the rage that she buried that day would not surprisingly have long-term effects. Ultimately, it would also help her recognize the inherent intersections between sexism and racism. Cora's world would dramatically shift again in the late summer of 2004, just before she began graduate studies in religion and ethics at Harvard Divinity School. The Republican National Convention was being held in New York City, where she was spending her last week before classes began with her best friend. Together, they watched the city turn into a cauldron of protest against the Iraqi war. A fellow organizer from Stanford called her and asked if she could serve as a legal observer for the next day's protest. She'd done that many times in California. Her role was to film the protest, protect against any police misconduct, and mediate between police and protesters wherever possible. On the morning of August 31st, she showed up alone on a street corner in the financial district of New York, wearing her green badge that read, "Legal Observer, National Lawyers Guild." To make a long story a bit shorter, she was almost immediately caught up in a sweep arrest, one of almost 1,800 protesters arrested that day. Her ID was ignored, her camera thrown to the ground and shattered as she was tightly handcuffed with sharp plastic ties and ushered into a van. "I'm a legal observer. I'm not part of this action. You did not give me a warning," she shouted repeatedly, but to no avail. The ties were so tight, she began losing feeling in her hands. And when confronted by a police, she noted his name was Lieutenant Campo, at the makeshift detention center that they'd been brought to, she started to ask if the ties could be loosened. But before she could finish, he'd circled behind her, grabbed her wrists, and with one clean force, twisted them up hard. In her words, "Knife, sliced hand off wrist. I thought my hand had fallen off. Pain shot up into the base of my skull like a gun shoved under skin. See, she's fine," he said, and then the world went black. In her mind, All Kerr heard was her grandfather's whispering tremor, Ik Oengar, that seek for God is one. And it was followed by the Mul Mantar, the holy chant invoked for enduring torture, the sound forming the vessel then carrying the body across the ocean of pain, life being the ocean. Next came panic, movement, a snap, and the cuffs were off. Her hand was still there, with purple gashes across the vein, though she couldn't feel the gashes or her hand. There was yelling and confusion, and then the lieutenant's voice saying, "Take her away." Cor was transferred to headquarters, booked and herded down hallways, chained to other detainees. Her requests for medical treatment or legal counsel were denied, but she was able to call her teammate Shahid before being put in a cell. The protesters were detained for 16 hours that day, long enough to keep the streets empty during President Bush's acceptance speech at the Republican convention. Cor had always thought her privilege, her citizenship, education, literacy, formed a sort of membrane of protection between her and state violence. But in entering a fight against the state and its foot soldiers on behalf of brown people, as a brown woman, those privileges thinned to nothingness quickly. The battle had now become intimately personal, dangerous, and potentially deadly, and traumatic. Cor realized her professor had been right. She needed a sword and a shield, in essence her camera and a law degree, and more, in her own words, in that moment, curled up on the floor of the cell, I knew I needed to access something deeper and more fiery in me if I was going to face this kind of Goliath. I just didn't know what it was or how to find it. And so, a week later, entering Harvard, her hands still numb and splinted, Cor's new quest began, learning to love her opponent. She was determined to overcome this trauma, to reclaim her warrior courage, while practicing her faith's call to see no stranger. She chronicles her efforts, first seeking to understand human cruelty in general and the cruelty of Lieutenant Campo, who had hurt her specifically. But the more she read and thought she understood, the more she felt the pain in her wrist shooting into her arm, shoulder, and neck. Her injury was not healing, it was getting worse. Typing an email with one finger, she describes her feelings to a friend with a poem by the ancient Greek poet Sappho. Pain penetrates me, drop by drop. Finally seeking relief that neither intellectual understanding nor Western medicine had provided, Cor went to an acupuncturist who, besides treating her, also tells her you have to treat your own body with the same compassion as you treat others. But Cor resisted. Her mind rationalized that her injuries fell far short of what other people suffered. Her arm was hurt but not broken. Her teenage molestation had not been a rape. Her cultural conditioning for silent suffering prevailed. And as long as she compared her suffering to others, she couldn't access compassion for herself, only shame. That led Cor to Cor's second effort, practicing compassion. She attended a loving kindness workshop that taught the Buddhist meditation practice we often use here at UMB, designed to cultivate the qualities of compassion for ourselves, for others, and ultimately for our opponents. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be at peace. Cor's eyes filled with tears as she made a concerted effort to send these kind, tender words to herself. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you be safe. May you be at peace. She smiled as she pictured her boyfriend, Sharat, and then the homeless man asleep on the bench in Harvard Square that she'd seen as she'd come to the class. But as the guide then began to lead them to picture someone you consider an enemy, and Lieutenant Campos' face came into her mind. Cora felt nothing but panic, which only expanded as the mantra continued, until she couldn't breathe and had to run from the room. She would realize later that she couldn't bring herself to love her enemy because she absorbed the lie that love requires us to tend to our opponent's wounds before we tend to our own. Her third effort involved developing empathy. She saw flyers for a play about Abu Ghraib, examining the prisoner abuse and torture there at the hands of U.S. soldiers. The play was meant to keep attention on the scandal and humanize both the detainees and the soldiers in the story. She thought it might be a way to develop empathy for the lieutenant who had hurt her. Perhaps she could experience his perspective on the world, even as her right hand still wasn't working. The rehearsals were intense and emotional. Egged on by the director shouting impassioned directives, at first she played an Iraqi woman being tortured, and then she was told to switch roles so that she was now the woman torturing the soldier. The music kept getting louder and her spinning got faster until she actually socked the other player in the arm really hard. She stopped and apologized profusely and couldn't continue the scene. She went outside recognizing the rage her character had felt, but that she had been able to express. She was frightened by this rage inside of her and felt the shame that that same monster that had hurt her and could hurt others also lived in her. Ultimately, the play proved to be cathartic. In the final minutes of the final night, in the middle of her last line, Cora broke down on stage and wept for a full minute. But the torrent of empathy did not heal her arm. A full year later, after the arrest, the pain was now chronic. Cora's fourth effort at loving her enemy was forgiveness. The summer between graduating from Stanford and heading off to Harvard Divinity School, Cora had met Sharat, the man she would ultimately marry. They would commute back and forth between Cambridge and LA over the next 2 years. I'm not going to go into their love story here, but I do highly recommend the book. The fact that Sharat was Hindu, not Sikh, however, would become the source of further trauma in Cora's life. Roshan, the cousin who had molested her so many years before, had decided it was his duty to save her honor and save her from marrying a non-Sikh by killing Sharat when they were in town for the winter break. Fortunately, Cora's brother had been able to intervene and talk him down. Then, 6 months later, when she was home for summer break, Roshan called her. He wanted to meet and talk. Cora wanted to forgive and move on. And so she went and met him without telling anybody where she was going. However, the meeting quickly spiraled downward as he pulled out a rifle and spun it from pointing at her to pointing at himself and back at her. Making another long story short, she escaped physically unharmed, but the event caused the whole story to be revealed to her family, the molestation, the death threats against Sharat, and now this. She hadn't called the police before because she didn't want Roshan to get hurt, a burden that many women of color share, where they're attacked by a man of color, but they're afraid to report it to the police for fear what will happen to him. But now she felt that she had to. With the support of her parents and her brother, Roshan was arrested, but her beloved grandfather declared that she had shamed the family. Cora left that night for Los Angeles, from her childhood home that would never again feel like her home. She'd been cast out because she had broken her silence. Sharat took her into his apartment in Los Angeles and held her tight through the panic attacks that would follow. And she began to learn that home is the space within us and between us where we feel safe and brave. It is not a physical space as much as it is a field of being. She would graduate from Harvard 6 months later and be accepted into law school. But her right arm now hung like a dead limb by her side, unable to lift a pen or turn a doorknob. She deferred law school for a year and then another, allowing Sharat to care for her in LA as she struggled to heal. And that brought her to Tommy Woon, one of her advisors from Stanford, a dean of multicultural education and a trailblazer in healing historical trauma. He operated on the premise that healing begins in the body and the brain follows. When traumas occur that we're unable to respond to, what Woon calls disrupted fight impulses, they become stored in our bodies. Panic keeps gripping us, and the past keeps bleeding into the present. Woon explained that Kaur didn't need to relive her trauma through talk therapy. She needed to access her fiercest emotions, that fire she had spoken and thought of in that prison cell, and reclaim her agency in her mind and her body. And one way to do this is to experience an alternative narrative. I've done this kind of body-centered intervention therapy a number of times, and I can attest it is very powerful. Woon had Kaur begin by imagining herself back in the detainment center with Lieutenant Campo in front of her as she began to ask him to remove her handcuffs. Then Woon says to her, "He is about to circle around you, but he stops. You are transforming into something big and powerful before his eyes." At that suggestion, Kaur spotted her childhood stuffed tiger, Raja, on her bed, and she said, "Tiger." Woon then guides her through an alternative narrative where, as a tiger, she's able to chase and capture the lieutenant. Woon has her move her clenched fists and twitching legs to release the motion that's in them. And he says, "You've caught him. Now what are you going to do?" "Destroy him," Kaur hears herself say, as her brain recoils, thinking, No, I did not just say that." But Woon interjects, "Go ahead, it's okay. This is good. Don't override your impulses." And so she attacks, visioning herself ripping apart the lieutenant, leaving nothing but torn clothing, blood, bones, and muscle laying in the street. "Notice what's happening in your body," Woon guides. Kaur was breathing hard, feeling embarrassed, but also feeling energy rising in her, making her want to leap up. "Celebrate," Woon says. And Kaur jumps up, stretches her arms to the sky, feeling big, relieved, and satisfied. Woon then guides her to think of the lieutenant again. And Kaur, still imagining herself as the tiger, sniffs the bloodied clothes on the ground and notices that the lieutenant isn't there. Instead, there stood a frail, naked, and anxious man. A white man who didn't know what else to do with his anxiety but rage at women of color. He was a product of a system that sanctioned routine violence as the outlet for rage, whether in a New York detention center or a prison in Abu Ghraib. She would repeat the exercise over, but with Roshan and the rifle, realizing that when she tore up these men who had traumatized her, she wasn't destroying them, but her projections of them as monsters who had held infinite power over her. In hindsight, she saw that these men had hurt her out of their own wounds and their own suffering. But we can't see others' wounds until we tend to our own. And that requires that we access our own rage. Kaur's final attempt, owning her rage, was her first successful step to loving her opponents. Experiencing her own rage in the safe container that Woon had created allowed Kaur to realize that she was worth protecting, just as a mother accesses her rage to protect her children. It's an aspect of love that must be embraced to empower love's full expression. We, especially women and people of color, have been trained to suppress our rage. But rage is a healthy, normal, and necessary response to trauma, including social traumas of patriarchy, white supremacy, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, and poverty. And we now have data to prove what community healers know well. Repressing anger comes at a cost to our health. It results in high rates of autoimmune diseases amplified perceptions of physical pain, and many other emotional wounds. But to be sure, the opposite of repression is also dangerous. Too many men have been socialized to unleash rage without apology. For men, rage is often the secondary emotion that masks sadness or shame, violence being the socially conditioned default for male rage, exacerbated now by the proliferation of guns in our society. The solution, however, is not to suppress our rage or let it explode in violence. Instead, we must create safe containers where we can process it without harming ourselves or others. Safe containers can take many forms besides trauma therapy, creating a safe space for ourselves to shake, to weep, to dance, to do drama or other arts, to meditate, to write, to create rituals, practice martial arts, to run, to drum. Whatever allows us to fully own and release our pain, our wounds, and the energy that caught in our bodies becomes toxic. Only when we give our rage an external expression outside of our bodies can we be in relationship with it and ask, what information does my rage carry? What is it telling me to do? How can I harness this energy into life-giving expressions rather than destructive ones? Questions that lead us full circle back to wondering and forward into learning to listen and then to reimagine our lives and the world. And that's what we'll talk about next week. I leave you with this question from Bell Hooks to ponder in the meantime. How do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed? Namaste.
God before me, God behind me, to the left and the right. God above me, God below me, all around and inside. God before me, God behind me, to the left and the right. God above me, God below me, all around and inside. All around and inside. All around and inside.
So I invite you now to just get comfortable wherever you are and begin to bring your awareness into your body, taking some slow, deep breaths to help bring you into this present moment. Breathing in deeply and feeling that breath of life reaching every cell of your body. Exhaling, letting go, and releasing. And again, breathing in deeply, knowing that you are here, right here. Exhaling. Again, knowing that you are right here. Feel your body supported by the surface beneath you. And just allow whatever is present in your body right now to just be there. meeting whatever is with total acceptance in this moment. Whatever sensations you might be feeling in your body, pain or discomfort, whatever emotions might be present, just allow them to be just as they are. And now taking another deep breath in, allow yourself to become aware of the loving presence of God, however you conceive of that. And begin to imagine that loving presence of God as a bright light. Whatever color you choose in this moment will be the perfect color. A brilliant, sparkly light that is emanating warmth and love and compassion and forgiveness and healing and rest. Now I invite you to imagine this light up above your head. Imagine it streaming down its beautiful, brilliant light, entering into the top of your head, beginning to trickle down the sides of your head and your face, bringing with it a soothing, healing, comforting feeling. As you feel that light emanating down from above, moving down over your neck and shoulders, bringing warmth, bringing relaxation. Feel that beautiful, brilliant, healing light going down your arms, your hands, and out through your fingers. Continue to experience that soothing, warm feeling as it moves down your torso into your hips, moving down your legs, into your ankles and your feet, and out through your toes. And just continue to allow that healing light to flow down from above, flowing down through your body. Emanating that perfect love, compassion, and healing that come from the divine. And allow yourself now to just rest in this beautiful healing presence for a few moments in the silence. And as we begin to prepare to bring this time of meditation to a close, remember what this space feels like. And know that you have access to this place whenever you choose. You can return at any time to this place of love and healing and rest and compassion.
God before me, God behind me, to the left and the right. God above
for ourselves in the name of that living, loving Christ Spirit. And we give thanks for this time together and for this community that supports us in our spiritual growth. So we say thank you, God. And so it is.
So it is.
Amen.
Unity of Monterey Bay is the collective consciousness and commitment of us all who give of our time, treasure, and talent in order to sustain this spiritual community that is dedicated to transforming lives. We know that prosperity is a state of mind that finds blessings in every situation and abundance in joyous generosity. We transform all appearance of fear or lack into a faith-filled peace of mind by shifting our attention to thoughts of gratitude for the abundance of God's good in our lives. And with our hearts and minds overflowing with gratitude, we breathe into the divine flow of God's good, trusting that we are enough, and that we have enough, and that there always is enough both to have and to share. And again, we are grateful to all of you for your online giving through our website at unityofmontereybay.org and through your mailed-in offerings, including those who have set up automatic giving with your banking institutions. We are truly blessed. And now, from this place of faith and gratitude, I invite you to join me in mindful intention and joining in our offertory blessing. I am an open channel for God's infinite good. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies everything I give and everything I receive. I am both blessed and a blessing. Thank you, God.
1, 2, 3, 4. Water is nice, cools your brow on a summer day. Water is sweet, out of a canyon it'll show the way. Water is life, world would wither without oceans blue. Water is spring, take a drink and be born. What I really want is fire. What I really need is fire. What I really want is fire. What I really need is fire. Wind is a kiss, flustered faces in the autumn air. Wind is a guide, out of stillness it'll fill your sail. Wind is a song, summer storm will whistle all night long. Wind is a cry, uprooting earth and making forests strong. What I really want is, what I really need is fire. What I really want is fire. What I really need is what I really need is fire. What I really want is fire. What I need is fire. There's a time to sit in silence by a mountain stream. There's a time to rise above my daily desire. There's a time when life is more than a private dream. Oh, it's time for fire. want is, what I really need is fire. What I really want is fire. What I really need is fire. Fire. I lose control. Burn my fire to do what I don't do yet. Fire to walk without a clue. Fire to make me positive. Fire to dive into the deep. Fire to wake me from my sleep. Fire to turn these walls to dust. Fire to risk it all for love. Fire to see what no one sees. Fire to dream what no one dreams. What I really need is fire. What I really need is, what I really want is, what I really need is, what I really want is fire. What I really need is fire. What I really want is fire. What I really need is fire.
Woohoo! So we would like to thank Daniel Nahmod for that awesome song. Is this like a new album or something? Can we promote it? Oh, it's an old album. Well, you can still go and buy it. We love Daniel Nahmod. And our guest musician today, Devin, as well as Denise on the piano and John over there on the bongos. So we have... What's that? I'm sorry. It's not a... It's a djembe. I can't see it from here, so... Whatever it was very cool. So we thank you for that awesome music. And we also want to thank Richard Burdick, Jan Garrett, and J.D. Martin for allowing us to use their music for this service today. So as we bring our service to a close this morning, we are so grateful that you have joined us here. And we hope that we have made you feel at home with our Unity of Monterey Bay community. And we want you to know that wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We want to make sure that we all stay prayed up, pre-prayed and prayer conditioned and all that stuff during this challenging time. So please avail yourself of our prayer request link on our website at unityofmontereybay.org. Know that our prayer chaplains are holding those prayers in prayer throughout the week. Vicky and I are available by email, and Always Silent Unity is available 24/7 by phone, email, or their Silent Unity app. We will be having our coffee hour after the service, beginning at 11:15, but we'll probably be a couple minutes late. And so with all of that, I just invite you to envision that circle that we form every Sunday, knowing that those of us that are here today are holding that circle, and we are imagining you standing here with us as part of this circle, even as you are at home. So please join me now in our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. once again, thank you for joining us this morning. Have an awesome Sunday and a wonderful week.